I'm Roman, one of the co-founders and CEO of Hall.io. I'm very much a product guy, have been for a long time. I help as much as I can other companies which are struggling with a lot of different problems, and I have this personal bias of always having to try to find the kind of unifying layer underneath what I see and do some sort of pattern recognition. My first company name was Unity. My GitHub profile is the same. I've always tried to understand what is the common rule behind things. And so before I go into personalization and the topic of this thing, I want to tell you a few quick words about what Hull is. And Hull basically is solving that problem. The problem that when you're a marketer, you're a sales, customer success in high growth companies, and even in enterprise companies, the data you need to work somewhere is usually somewhere else. And so it's a data integration problem. So this is 8,000 marketing companies today alive. So there's a lot of places to hide for the data. We are on the bottom right corner, so we have our own little sweet spot. And what we do is we're what is called a customer data platform. So really, like in a nutshell, we take data from all the places where it can be stored. We build a unified view, unified profile with that data, and then we ensure that it is accurately updated in all of the services. So basically, we bring the data you need in the tools you use on a daily basis, and we do that in real time. So we build that unified record where you can see for a given user everything that they have done across every tool, and we let you enrich it, so transform, compute scores, use AI in the middle to derive some important signals. We let you build segments, and then we synchronize it back to those tools. And this brings me obviously to the topic at hand today, which is how do you personalize at scale when the amount of things you need to do is way beyond what your team can achieve. And so just a little quick background on this. A few years ago, we had what is called a factory era. The guy with the biggest factory wins because they can produce more than the others. And then came Nike, MTV, what is called a mass marketing era. You have a lot of money, you can do a lot of advertising, you can spread it, you win. Then, obviously, we all know the past 15 years, which have been about online marketing. The one who handles the online marketing better can outsmart and outgrow every other. And today, everyone can buy ads online. So the trick today, the really secret to success, is being closer to your customers. And being closer means actually not telling them the same story to every single user because everyone is different. So why? Because personalization allows you to understand the needs and goals of your customers, to provide a better experience. And today, this is what wins, because everyone can produce, everyone can advertise. Now the difference is in the experience you can provide. And lastly, it makes people feel special, and you get into human emotions, and that is way more powerful than any rational argument when winning a deal. So it's about tailoring every interaction and taking each person's characteristic and journeys into account. And if you think about it, if you're a guy in a shop, you know, a small mom and pop shop anywhere in France or in the world, you know some customers very specifically, you know what they like, you know what they want to buy, you know what they hate. You can actually tailor your interaction on a one-to-one basis. Now, this is very powerful. This is why you keep coming back to the same store, even though the store next has a cheaper version of the product or whatever. How do you do this online? Because you don't know people online. And so it's all about getting some context, treating people in the context of who they are. This is a very bad experience. This is forms that you have to fill that ask you the same question all over again. When you call support, they ask you your name, address, social security number, everything since you were born. This is how you try to convert someone to buy your product. You just send emails after email after email. It just doesn't work. People are fed up with this. And what we realize at Hull is that actually good personalization, the one that's not annoying, is a data problem. It's all about how accurate can you build a picture around a given customer. So I'm going to talk to you about this in 4 steps that actually work in sequence, but you can start with the first one and move on and do smarter and smarter personalization as you implement those steps. So collecting data is about obviously building that unified profile, and even if you only do this with the actual data that is in your company, you can already get a lot of insights and a lot of information. This is called first and second party data. It's basically, it's going to be traffic, website traffic data, the data from your backend database. If there are any engineers here that will recognize the elephant of Postgres. This is the data you own. And for this, you have a lot of it. You can control it. You can actually do a lot of things with it. I'm just going to take a quick step back. Is anyone here a marketer? No one. 2, 3, 4 people. Great. So for the others, I'm going to give you an insight about what goes on in a marketer's head. They have all of this data. They say, hey, it's available. Why can't I use it? And this is a very big problem that is not about data existing, but data being used. And so marketers often say, hey, can I use like the fact, how many times did this guy come to the website? This is cool. Now, did they do that action or that action? And this is what, when you start collecting it, allows you to understand the customers better. And with this, you can also add what is called second-party data, which is the data that is not directly in your own products, but the data in your emailing tool or your support tool, your conversation tool. It's still something you own, but it's hosted in external services that you pay for. It's your CRM data, and it is interesting to see, customer data along with their behavioral data. Because what it allows you to do is things like what we call product qualified leads. Product qualified leads is answering a very simple question. So you take data from different services, you bring it in your CRM, and suddenly what you can do is, okay, if that user is actually in an active trial, and that user has been invited by some other person, then I'm going to deem them as very qualified. So I'm going to write them an email. It sounds simple, but many companies struggle to do this because data is scattered. And when you send the email at precisely the right time, it is on purpose. The user just started their trial. It's the right time to talk to them. So this is a very simple example of, hey, I can't talk to everyone all the time, but I know that at that time, it's the right time to tell them, hey, I just saw you were using the product. Do you need help? Do you need help is a very powerful thing. You give something to people, and then they want to interact with you. So what we saw with product qualified lead among our customers is incredible. That very simple scenario results in some of our customers in more than 70% increase in conversion. Just because they sent one simple email at the right time, they get a discussion going, and then they have 70 more closing in their deals. And it also, if you have customers that are paying low amounts of money, but are using the product in a way that makes you think that they could spend a lot more. Well, right there, by sending the right message at the right time, you get 30% more in the account value. You can upgrade your accounts in average by 30%. It's incredibly, it is incredibly powerful for such a simple scenario. And we're going to see more complex, more smarter scenarios with what you can do with more data and smarter use of that data as we go. So Enrich is, okay, now I have my own data. I have some data that I've collected. I react on their behavior. Now I need more. I need to do my research, basically. If you're networking in a room, you probably are looking at someone and say, okay, that guy is from that company. Let me look it up online. What is that company size? What is that guy's role? It's context. It's more context. It's enrichment data. And it turns out that this can be automated too. People spend a lot of time researching their potential leads online, but you can actually make it real time, and you can actually make it seamless so that at the second someone starts interacting with you, you already have all of that context. And so building on the same pattern, you can see 3 examples of enrichment products. One is giving you the technologies used by a company. And if you're selling technology, you do want to know if that customer is using an IBM product or Salesforce product, because that tailors the discussion. You avoid the boring time of asking them all of the questions. You already have the answers, and then you can directly go into the right discussion. You also have firmographics data. What is that guy's role? How much did the company raise? How many employees? Where is the headquarters? All of these questions, they allow for natural discussions and not just sequence of questions to qualify the leads. And you can have that in real time and not spend any time, if you're a sales guy, to ask all of these questions, which people hate answering all the time. And the last one is predictive scoring, so AI. Basically, I can build a scoring model with an Excel spreadsheet. It's going to be based on my insights. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But a predictive scoring could tell you, based on all of the patterns from the past customers, that this specific person, with all of the data taken into account, is probably a great fit. And this helps you actually tailor your sequence, the choice of people you're going to talk to the right ones, the one who have the best chance at closing. So this is an example from one of our customers, Lengo. What they do is they provide some sort of a pipe to spread your product catalog, if you're an e-commerce, to many different places such as Google Shopping, Amazon Marketplaces, and everything. What they want to know when someone asks to get in touch is they want to know, is that guy a fit first? Because maybe it's not, maybe they're not. But also, they don't want to turn them off. So you see their form, it's actually just two fields, email and website. And from this, they send it immediately to those products, and they get the company size, but also the technologies used by the customer. So immediately they know they can actually serve the customer. What a time saving. And they also can have a fast lane. If a customer is big enough and using the right tools, then the sales team will receive an email to say, hey, this guy just came in, you actually need to talk to them right now. Because if you talk to them in the next 15 minutes, they're still active on your website, and you will actually have a better chance of closing. They realize that they have almost 50% more closing if they call people in the next 15 minutes. So, since they cannot do for the same thing for everyone, they do it just for the right people. And so, lead scoring is this in depth. It's not about, hey, I got an amazing score for that customer, let's just rank by score, because that is just a number. Lead scoring is really about empowering the sales rep to take the right actions, to say, hey, I cannot call everyone today, but I'm going to call these people because I have a very good reason to do so. So this is an example that goes for not only just the first-time qualification, but this is what happens when you have people who come back to your site again and again and again. So you have, a lot of context, ambient data, but then at some point, this guy from IBM comes back for the third time on your website. This is probably the right time to give them another call. So you combine lead scoring and behavioral context to actually trigger the right actions for your team. And so, same story. The goal for this, for the sales team with better data, is that they actually call, we have a customer, I didn't put the numbers here, they have 1/3 less calls and 1/3 more closing with the same amount of leads, and just by putting that pipeline in place, just by having the right discussions, not boring people with questions, and just talking to the people who are actually valuable leads. So this is what you can do with enriched data. Now, I'm going to talk about, now this is fine, but this still is the last action is a human touch. You're going to send a manual email. You can go a lot further. You can automate the personalization, and this is the topic of today. You can go further and you say, hey, I want to act in real time. I want to personalize some outreach in real time. But the problem with traditional strategies is that you have what is called an ETL. It's something you have in a lot of large companies. It's extracting data from one place, putting it in a data warehouse, and then transforming it and then putting it again in another tool. The problem for this is that it's not live. It can take up to 2 weeks for the data to go all the way through. And so as a result, you just cannot use that to personalize your insights, because what you do if you have real-time data is that you can actually get in all sorts of crazy scenarios. I won't explain all of this, but the high level is, how do I send a personalized first email? I'm going to send an email for the first time to the person who just signed up. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to send the same email to everyone. When a marketer signs up to my website, I want to speak from the voice of a marketer. I want to talk to them about ROI, the value of using things, and how to get started in a very simple and high-level fashion. But when I talk to a developer, developers have a different goals. They have different aspirations. They want to get deep down, they want to get their hands dirty, and they want to start immediately using things. So I'm going to send a different email. I'm going to send an email that talks in a very short way about how you use it. And the result for this is that you get to a first email that has a 49% open rate. So this is an example of how it's been personalized. You can personalize on a lot of other aspects. You can actually put the names of the products that the customer is actually using. Instead of saying, hey, I saw you were using generic CRM. I saw you were using Salesforce. I saw you were using Marketo. You have a personal relationship with people that you actually automate completely. And it also allows you to say, I'm using Slack, real-time channel, to get information about what's happening, and I want to be pinged when a valuable demo request comes in. This is an example of what we use at Hall. When someone fills in a demo form, not only do we send it to our CRM, we enrich it, but we also score it, we also add all of the context, and the sales team can actually just follow the feed and see when a new lead comes in and know immediately if they need to act on it or they just put it in the backlog. This is very simple, very accessible for everyone in the team, and it empowers people to use that data. Another example is you're sending a sequence of email and people don't open it. So you send it once, twice, thrice. They keep not opening your email. At some point it becomes a waste. So what you're going to do is you're going to switch them to another channel. You're going to start advertising to them because they don't open your email. So you stop emails because that's just noise for them. And you start adding to an audience that retargets on that specific purpose. And of course, you can multiply this and have an audience that is specifically tailored for developers and an audience for marketers. This is where the role of a marketer comes in, to have the ideas for that personalization. And this is one last example. I went a bit fast because I know I have less time than usual to do that presentation. This is an example that we put in place, which is one of the most powerful kind of hacks that our customers have put in place. The idea is this: 95% or more of your visitors never leave an email. They just come and leave. And you have no chance of reaching them efficiently again. So what do? How do you reach them? Well, we came up with, one of our advisors, actually he came up with this and we implemented it with that specific scenario. Someone visits your website, you get their IP address. From this, you get their company name. You actually do all of your scoring and contact, because once you have the company name, you can do all of the enrichment to know the company size, you know the company's funding, technologies, and if that's a fit, you enroll them. And so I'm going to show you how. So you get you get their IP address from their visit. From that, you get their website domain. You know which company they are with a company called Clearbit. And then from this, you immediately send that information to scoring, technology, so you get all of the data that are shown here on the right, and it's actually shortened a lot. And you get all of this from a single visit. Now the next step is, obviously, I don't want to enroll people who are already my customers, so I do need that data about are they an existing customer? Am I already talking to them? Are they a good fit? So you exclude people. And then the last step is I'm going to use another product. So in that case, it's also Clearbit who has that those kinds of API to say, okay, give me 4 people in that company because I believe that company is a great fit for us. And with this, so this is actually went over order, but this is an example of this scenario running in our own product. You have this gigantic segment of all the conditions that define an active, interesting account for us. It's an account that has visited the website recently, that is a fit, that is not a customer, and that we have not prospected search for already. The result for us is more than 500 qualified accounts every month. So this is an incredible list to start prospecting. And so this is exactly what we do. Once we have the people in those companies, we just start an email sequence to talk to them. And of course, we personalize that email sequence. So we talk to them using the right language. You talk to them using the right tools, Salesforce, Marketo, Segment, Facebook Custom Audience. How on spot is this? It's not just a random cold outreach email that bores everyone. It's an email that goes to someone who probably just saw your website and is using exactly those technologies and is sent from a marketer because you're reaching out to a marketer. And the results are pretty impressive. With this, the outbound that we saw is more than a 200% increase from some of our customers. We have seen open rates for a cold email of more than 55%. How many of the cold emails that you receive on a daily basis do you open? The answer is probably close to 0. And for these guys, more than half open them. The response rate is 13%, and usually the response rate is, hey, it's funny, we were actually just talking about you yesterday. So how uncanny is this? Well, it's not uncanny at all. We kind of knew. But this is what really results in 22% of qualified opportunities. And for the customer that I'm talking about, it's their third source of revenue, and it's not a small company. So this is, in short, what you can do once you have clean and good and coherently assembled data, unified data. There's a lot of other things that you can do with that data. Obviously, you can talk about attribution, like go beyond the, hey, this is the first visit, they came from that ad. Maybe you can go a bit deeper. You can align your team and show them with actual data that this is the kind of customer that closes, this is the kind of customer that brings money, and this is the kind of customer that actually will end up churning, so no need to spend time on them. You can do personalization, you can qualify leads, you can help customer success, because usually when you have an account and you have many people in a company using your product, you see an account, you think it's used, the account is in good health, and then a pretty morning, it just ends. And usually the reason is that it's the last guy who was using the product stops using it and just shuts down the light when he leaves. And so this is how, with customer success, you can actually detect if more or less people are using the product inside of an account on a daily basis. You can do all sorts of crazy experiments. And obviously, you can be compliant with GDPR because GDPR asks you to know where your data is and how it flows and who's in control of it. So I hope that gives you some insights on what is good personalization, how it cannot be annoying but precisely like coherent and on spot. And if you have any questions, then I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, who want to start with the first question? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I see that automation is, it's really, especially in sales, that way is a really big thing. One question to when you want to spot the users, you say, okay, you spot 4 users,
yes.
but you don't know that it's those people that went onto your website. So how do you, do you just pick, I don't know, in LinkedIn and you find, okay, those are the 4 that are the most probably going to go on the website, or how do you do that?
So usually you cannot know the exact person who came to your website, but having the actual scenario is a bit more, is a bit smarter. We actually look for accounts that have more than 1 people visiting the website. And so we know that if 5 people visited the website and we're targeting the marketing department, then most probably we're going to hit someone. And usually what ends up being some of the responses is that we see a chain mail from one guy to another guy in the company to another guy in the company to finally the guy who reaches out to us. And so it might not be the exact person, but it's still the same team, and they usually talk about it.
I have a question perhaps regarding the team. Can you tell us how are you organized? Do you have any data scientists? Is it more DevOps? Is it more for the team?
For our teams or our customers' teams? So our team is incredibly small. We have 1 marketer and only engineers. And we have obviously sales and product and design, but on that side of the product, we do all of this with one guy. So, and we know it scales to a lot bigger, you know, setup.
What kind of engineers do you need?
So mostly back-end engineers, but I have to say they don't really spend time helping the marketer. The marketer is just our best user. He's our best customer. So he's basically doing this all alone. Yep.
Yeah, if Paris is data-driven, I think it's very important that Paris offers the data to those people who are improving the economy or improving life, improving activities, reducing car traffic, for instance, just enable people to precisely work in Paris, create companies, create startups. So how does that work in Paris?
You mean in general?
How do I get the data? I mean, if I want to do something here.
So the examples I gave are customers working with their own data. If you're talking about the data the enrichment data that I mentioned in the Clearbit product, they're a company and they sell a subscription access to that data. The things that I'm talking about here are customers building their own logic and orchestration on top of their own data. So this is not Facebook style data where all the data is put in one bucket. I'm not. Were you referring to the kind of access to the enrichment data?
No, I mean it's important to know where do I get it. I mean, if you want to be data driven, you must offer people to who you can talk to get the data, who explain which data they have, how they can be interconnected, how they can be processed like you just showed it.
The question is more about how can you help to your clients to use this kind of product, which seems quite difficult. Do you help your customers with the consulting stuff, services, or is it a plug-and-play software? Or?
So, high level, some of our customers are doing this on their own. They're kind of an early fringe. On our side, we help our customers a lot, not only from a technical standpoint, but also from an ideation standpoint, because the scenarios that I showed here are taken from the actual ideas that our customers had. And some of the things that I showed are implemented with other things that are our product. It's not the only way to do this. My point was more about how do you actually make good use of your data and not just stash it in a gigantic place that no one wants to look at. Yep.
I mean, for instance, if you take Google Analytics, it's an example how you can make use of the data without being in conflict with privacy. So you can get a lot out of the data by being good in statistics. And this, I think, is a task of the city of Paris to make use of all these statistical proceeds.
So we're proudly
get out of the data, yeah.
We're actually pretty proud to build that in Paris, and if the city of Paris reaches out, we'll welcome them with open arms to give them all the help they need.
Perfect, thank you. So an interesting story, and the question here, so when large companies, they tend to put their data in the big stuff that's walled and protected, and it's very hard to access to and takes a lot of time. So based on what you covered a bit in your answer to the previous question, how do you work with the customer to actually roll out your solution in the best way, in the fastest way possible, I guess, that's the question.
I guess the question is who owns the data in the company, and that's one of the hardest questions in all of the companies, because the goals, I have another presentation that I chose not to go into that topic for the sake of length. Data ownership is one of the biggest topics, and if you have a company that is aligned on actually providing a very good experience, then that becomes the #1 driver, and data ownership is something that people can agree on, usually with a little bit of tension in the beginning, but then they agree to open up the data to more teams in the company. In some other companies, the CIO owns the data, and his first and most pregnant role is to keep the data safe. The problem with this is that it usually ends up that the data is locked in a safe and no one has the key. So why do you even collect it? And so the companies that we work with have understood that using the data is really the real reason for collecting it in the first place. So they manage to align, because it's most often a C-level discussion, they align on, hey, let's try to do something with that data. So it's all about the DNA.
Okay. And a bit follow up to that. So you mentioned that you work with your customers a lot to integrate the solution. How do you facilitate, let's say, an adoption? So how do you extend the size?
So we have invested a lot in solution engineering. And that goes into what we call a white glove onboarding. We help our customers come up with their first scenario even before we close them. So we have a discussion with them. We share some documents. We kind of teach them how to think, how to have the right mindset in building their own usage of data. And we tell them, hey, start with the smallest, simplest scenario that you cannot achieve today, but that would create some value for your company. And we're going to help you end-to-end to do this. But we're not going to do it in a way that is kind of a fastest, hackish way. We're going to do it right. We're going to do it in a way that creates value for the second scenario to be able to be plugged in an easier fashion. And we basically teach them how to work with engineering and advice so that they end up being completely autonomous on using that data. We believe that in a few years' time, things are going to be different. If you look at 10 years ago, marketing automation was kind of not a thing.
I think we're going to move on. Thank you, Romain.
Thank you.